Talking about teams whose fortunes have divergently changed from last season. Newcastle and Manchester City, 5:30 on Saturday night. Beware the wounded animal. Eddie Howe said just before the international break, Scott, that it was the first time in 4 years that his team had faced serious questions. I think it'll be a different team that come out on Saturday night. But City have to maintain their momentum. So this should be an absolute cracker of a game, and it usually is when these two come together.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was at the G-Tech for the game just before the break, and Newcastle were really poor. I mean, really poor. I mean, Brentford were poor in the first half, and they even got the first goal. And a Brentford fan sort of texted me and said, "Oh, we're struggling." I just said, "Look, this is the Newcastle side where on paper and the individual players they've got and the midfield they've got, which you've always lauded about, are just not playing well. If you can somehow find a way and step it up." And they did. And Newcastle had nothing. And it was back-to-back defeats there. And obviously what happened with the West Ham game, that was really poor. I do think them being at home is a big, big difference. It shouldn't be such the difference. I think this will be a tough game for City again, coming off the back of the international break. But City do look good at the moment, don't they? They're maybe they're not quite to how they were sort of 2-3 seasons ago, but that you get the feeling that they're just getting closer and closer. So if this was at home for City, it'd be an absolute home banker for me. With it being at St James's Park, does make it interesting.
I think it depends, their title challenge, whether or not they can keep Haaland fit, because he got 2 more goals over the international break. Norway secured their World Cup place. Congratulations to them. It's the first time that they and Scotland have got there since 1998. We're doing lots of 90s throwback this season, aren't we? Doku got a couple for Belgium too. Manchester City have to keep both of those fit, I think, in order for them to stay in the title race. But Haaland in particular, he's so integral to the way they play. He scores over 35% of their goals, and that is a major chunk. You've got to make sure that he doesn't pick up any injuries. And this key period over December and January, where a lot of games are being played, I think you've just got to manage his minutes correctly. Newcastle is a bit of a story, though, isn't it? Because they finished 5th last season, 2 points off the relegation zone now as it stands, Crook. What are the struggles down to?
Well, obviously injury. You know, they've been without some key players, not least Johan Wissa, obviously yet to kick a ball for them yet. I think Livramento has been a massive loss as well. We were at the game against Arsenal when he suffered another knee issue, and certainly they've missed his zest and his ability to run at defences as well as obviously defend himself. But I think the Isak saga casts a cloud that maybe is still hanging. And I do go back to the summer and wonder if the owners could have intervened in that situation earlier, could have got a deal done with Liverpool much earlier, which might have been better for all concerned. But also, obviously, they're trying to balance playing Champions League football with what they want to achieve domestically. And if you look back to when they were last in the Champions League, they tended to struggle in the Premier League after playing in Europe. So the squad's just not big enough, is it? And I think that's pretty clear for all to see. I think they need reinforcements in January. I'm not sure they're going to bring them in by the bucket load. And certainly in terms of Champions League qualification, I think they look a long way short.
I've heard a lot about there being a problem with Newcastle, and I think Eddie Howe saying it as well just before the international break, saying that his team are under serious scrutiny, sort of highlighted that. But I think there's a couple of things at play here. One, this is how good Newcastle have been under Eddie Howe, that they lose a couple of games and everybody starts to pull their hair out. Secondly, could this be a little bit of an overreaction here, folks? Have you actually looked at the results themselves? Have you actually looked at the fixtures themselves? Because I went through it this morning. Newcastle have won 6 of their last 9 in all competitions. At St James's Park, they've won 7 of the last 10 home games. Won 7 of the last 10 home games. And the only teams that have stopped them from winning at home this season are Arsenal, Liverpool, and Barcelona. They should have beaten Liverpool, they should have beaten Arsenal, and they were well in the game against Barcelona. So do you think there's a little bit of an overreaction here, Scott?
Yeah, I do. And as Crookie said, to sort of balance the Champions League and Premier League, and it's not always the game after the Champions League game, it's just the whole season of balancing everything. We talked about how the home form has been good. Look, Isak was an issue in the beginning, even though I thought the performances were pretty decent. Wissa being out, that was the one who was meant to stretch the defences when Voltemade always wants to come short all the time. But Voltemade himself has done really well. I think Anthony Gordon, if you look at his stats, they've not been, and as a player, I really, really like, he's not sort of affecting games in the way that we know he can. I also think the new signings haven't really done particularly well, apart from, as I say, Voltemada. You know, you talk about Ramsey, and there's a few others there as
really
well,
struggled.
where Elanga's really struggled and he's not being brought on or started. But the bottom line is, I'd pin it down, if you had to pin it down to one thing, and it's more than one, is the away form. And the away form, and I think that the West Ham game and the Brentford game, for a team that wants to regularly be in the Champions League, with respect to both of those sides, you've got to be winning the games, or at least look competitive. And they haven't looked competitive. So that's his biggest worry for me.
Yeah, no Dan Burn, he's suspended. Gordon should be back despite missing international duty. Pope was concussed before the international break, so it'll be interesting to see if he's recovered. Joel Linton had a bit of an issue, didn't go well on international duty. Livramento supposed to be close as well. We think Vissa should be back by the first week in December for Newcastle United. For Manchester City, Rodri, still touch and go whether or not he's going to make it, because now a thigh injury. The good news is they've got Nico Gonzalez there, who really has stepped up and played well. And we've mentioned him a few times now on this particular podcast. We think he's done very well indeed.